Okay, for the day we have abstract classes, multiple inheritance in Java, and interfaces. Okay, before we start off, I'll little bit rearrange these topics so that I'll connect with the previous topics first and then continue with it. Okay, so in the last class, I was telling about inheritances where a class can inherit features from another parent class. Okay, so before we get into multiple inheritance in Java, well, there are different types of inheritances. I'll go through each and every one. The first one comes to be single inheritance. Multi-level hierarchical. Okay, so single inheritance is where simple. It's where one of my parent classes will be inherited into another child class. Class A is inherited into class B. So there are certain properties from class A which will be brought into class B and used there. Okay. So multi-level. This is just a step ahead of multiple. Sorry, the previous one where I have certain levels of inheritance. I'll say my A is inherited into B, and B again is inherited into C, and going on. Many other different classes can inherit C, right? So such kind of inheritance is multi-level inheritance. Okay. Now, what is hierarchical? Hierarchical inheritance is where one class A is inherited into multiple subclasses. Like B, C, okay. So this is with my hierarchical inheritance. One class inherited into multiple subclasses. Okay, and now comes multiple inheritance, where conceptually at least I expect two classes A and another class B to be inherited into another class C, where all the features from A I need in B and all the features from B I need in certain features of A and B I need in C. Now, what happens in this case? Any idea what can happen, what might happen? At least if I'm considering this conceptually, what might happen here? I'm inheriting both the classes. Any guess? Any guess? Okay. So what can happen here is, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Well, I'll go ahead. What can happen here is certain features of A or certain attributes or certain members of B, like on a similar naming convention, can be present in B also. So in that case, what happens? Whenever A is also inherited and B is also inherited, C at the time when we are accessing the attributes through C, the compiler will be in ambiguity whether to access the members of A or to access the members of B, right? If the members have a similar naming convention. So conceptually, even if this seems okay, but programmatically this fails to happen. But there is a way to achieve this kind of inheritance, which we'll be discussing today. Okay, and multiple classes into one subclass. For now, I'll say that this is not possible. Okay, but there are means to achieve this kind of inheritance. We'll be discussing that later in this class. Okay, and hybrid or diamond formation is just another extension of this, like where I have another parent class D, which is inherited into A and B. Now, if I'm trying to access the elements of D, okay, from an instance of C, so it will be like a kind of the compiler will be ambiguous whether to access the elements of D through A or through B. So that's also another case of hybrid or diamond formation inheritance. Okay. So this is with different types of inheritances. I guess this was answered. Multiple inheritance in Java is not possible. Not possible, I mean to say, as I explained so far, with this kind of parameters, it is certainly not possible. But there are ways which we'll be discussing going further. Okay, this is with my multiple inheritance in Java. Coming to our next topic, which is abstract classes. Any doubts with this different types of inheritance? Johnny, please respond. Yeah. Hybrid. Hybrid is where I call this diamond formation because it's a diamond structure. Well, the picture I have drawn here is not looking like that, but a hybrid formation is where one parent class is inherited into two subclasses, and again two subclasses are again try to be inherited into one subclass. So as I was telling you that multiple inheritance is first of all not feasible, and now when I try to for example, I create an instance of C, means I create an object of C. Now when I try to access elements or members within D, now the compiler or the runtime will be in ambiguity whether to access the elements of D through instances of A or through instances of B. So that is why this is another case with the multiple inheritance. So this is not feasible. Okay, is that clear? Is that clear? If that is so, we'll move on to abstract classes. Yeah. Okay. So what is abstract classes? Sorry. Okay. So what is abstract classes? Abstract is a scenario where I set a prerogative that what am I setting? Or setting a prerogative in our programming case is that where I declare a method within a class I'll that just to declare a method within a class. Now how is that possible? I've already created a simple Java project. I'm going to create another class. I'll say C square. Okay, so here, for example, okay, increase the font size in this, is it? Well, I'll find that out. This is somewhere here. Okay, so I have just created a simple Java class. I'll create another class saying animal If you want to directly create an abstract class, here is the way where I select that class to be abstract, and yes, it becomes an abstract class. Now, before I go here, I'll just take it here. So set a prerogative that I'll implement certain method at a later point of time. So how do I do that? I'll say public void. I'll say a method named implement later. Now I cannot just do this, but I have to include another keyword called abstract. So now since I have made a method as abstract in case of mine, okay, so I have made a method within a class as abstract. Now, how does the runtime know that this class has abstract methods? So it has to treat abstract classes differently. So that is where abstract classes comes into picture, where even if there is a single abstract method or no abstract methods, you can make a class as abstract, where I do the same thing. Yeah, can you see this? I just add this abstract keyword in front of my class keyword. So now what happens? The runtime or the compiler knows that whatever the class I have created or I'm trying to run is an abstract class, and it has certain abstract methods which has to be implemented when I'm going to inherit this class into another. So what do I do? I'll create another class saying abstract subclass. So now in this case, how do I inherit another class? I'll use my extends keyword. Of course, it stands the same for even abstract classes. That's it. So I inherit this abstract class, but I am seeing an alert saying I have to implement the unimplemented methods of my parent class. So in this case, as soon as I do this, it will bring up that method for which I have to write the implementation at this stage. Otherwise, I cannot proceed. If I'm not willing to provide implementation for this, for example, I'll say, let me not provide the implementation for this at this stage. Okay, I'll not do that. I'll just have to make this class also abstract. Now, this is also made abstract. Since this is also made abstract, I can create another implement another method. Okay, so I just made this also as abstract. I'll add abstract modifier. Now I'm going to create another class saying some abstract final. I'll say this. Now abstract subclass. So when I do this and click on my add unimplemented methods, it will ask me to implement both the methods which were not implemented in my hierarchy in my inheritance, multi-level inheritance structure. Okay, so at any point of time, I have to implement such methods. But what does this give me? Means, what does how does this help me? There are various ways an abstract class uh, can help me. One of which is where I don't have to decide what I have to implement at a parent level itself. No need to parent level or a super class level itself. Okay, that gives me a lot of flexibility in having different kinds of implementations in different uh, subclasses, right? So I could have done that in case of my parent class also, and I could have overridden such methods within my subclasses, but it only increases my code, and well, that's of no use also when when the child implementations are present. I don't have any work with my parent level implementation, right? So there are other features where I'll say mandatory to implement the methods of abstract class and any other. So with this, I actually lose one more important thing where I cannot instantiate my abstract classes. Why can't I instantiate my abstract classes? Just because consider an abstract class having no implementation within it at all. Like I've just declared like this. I've just went and declared hundreds of methods like this, and I have not provided any implementation. Now, if I'm trying to instantiate an object of that class, what is the point in doing it when I cannot perform any actions of it? So I cannot instantiate any of my abstract classes. Okay, if I have to instantiate, I can do it of its subclasses. Okay, which is where I can find the implementation of such details. Okay, so this is one thing, and I can have my main and static methods defined within my abstract classes. Okay, again, main is a static method, so I can have only static methods within my abstract classes, because as I was telling you, static methods are something related to my class. It's not of any object. So I can bring up those methods or its implementation just by the class reference itself. So I can define static methods. Okay. And when I'm saying you that I can have simply definite declarations of my method and I can later implement it, what level of uh, abstraction or what level of such declaration of prerogative is allowed? It is 0 to 99% of abstraction I can give in a class. How do I do this? 0 to 99% of the abstraction I give this. Why not 100%? I will come back to that. Why not 100%? 0 to 99% I'll say where I can just make a class as abstract, but I'll define all the methods within it. why do I do such thing, like I make a class as abstract, but I don't uh, but I don't leave any method unimplemented. I'll implement all the methods. This is where I actually bring in a check, not to 0% is where I'll say all methods implemented. Now this is where I need, this is one of the way where I can stop instantiating my class. So now what happens, I'm stopping instantiating my class, but I'm actually letting other classes to inherit my class, inherit my parent class, and then use those methods. I'm not stopping in that case, but I just don't want my class to be instantiated. That is where I make a class as abstract, and I'll implement all my methods within it. Okay. And 99% is where I make most of my class members are as abstract, means I don't implement them. I just define them. Okay. And why not all the methods? I can do that as well. Means 100% of abstraction I can actually bring in, but yes, I'll take that point later. Okay, because it somewhere connects with the inheritance also. Okay, so this is why I have abstract classes, and I can say extend my abstract classes and use the implementation. Right, this is what I do. Now what happens, I can have a non-final variables. Well, I'll take up this non-final. Final is not part of our topic, but yes, I'll take that up once I complete abstraction. Let me put that as a heading. Okay, so this is how my abstract classes are different, and well, you'll understand more of this abstracts, interfaces, and when to use it and all when you actually start looking through this design patterns, which I'll give you a heads up before we conclude our Java sessions. Okay, so don't worry about that now, but at least on a conceptual level, make yourself clear with abstract classes. Okay, is this clear? Abstract classes, Johnny, is this clear? Yeah. So this is with my abstract classes. Now coming to our next topic, final. So final is a keyword in Java. Okay. So what does it do, or on whom it is applicable? First of all, I can impose my final keyword on a class, on a method, and on a variable, class variable as well. Okay. So what happens if I impose a final keyword on a class? Final. Okay, let me bring up from variable. What happens if I make a class or I make a variable as final? It just makes that I cannot change its value once after declaration. Okay, during declaration time itself, I have to set the value, or just after that I can set the value, but not anymore. Only once I can do that. So that is where I say that that variable is final. Okay, so now when I make a method as final, so it is just that I cannot override this method in my subclasses. Okay, so such cases you can see like within Java also, where certain methods are made final, where I don't want my users to mess up while using Java. For example, where I where I where I create a DB connection using my OJDBC drivers. So in this case, there are many methods which are made final, where I don't want my user to mess up with my internal implementation of Java. So that is why they are made final, and by design they are like that. Now I've told you about variable and method. Can you guess what happens if I make my class as final? What happens if I am making my class as final? Any guess? What happens if I'm making my class as final? If I'm making my class as final, no, it is just that I cannot inherit it anymore. Okay, simple. So if I'm making a class as final, I cannot inherit it anymore. I can just use it as an instance of it. So this is with my final keyword. Now I think you could have understood why non-final variables cannot be used in abstract members. We can have non-final variables within my abstract classes. Okay, coming to my next topic, which is interfaces. Now, interfaces, I can say that it is the same as my abstract classes, but there is one thing which clearly differentiates between my interfaces is finally related to this. Finally, is not related to this, but I just wanted to make. I just wanted to explain final also. Okay, but there are several cases where we'll use final variables, final methods, final classes. So that is why I just explained final keyword also for you. But let me not bring this up. I think this confused you. This was a different topic. Okay, abstract classes and interfaces have relations in common. So now, what is an interface? What is an interface? Any English definition also would be fine. Okay, I'll give that out. Interfaces are where I'll just say that I'll just have my prerogatives, which is 100% in nature. Means I mean to say I can have 100% of abstraction. Okay, how is 100% of abstraction achieved here? Like here I was telling you that 0 to 99%. But in case of my interfaces, I can have 100% abstraction. Now what happens, how do I create this? Okay, before I go into creating. So how can I create an interface? Like Before we get into the IDE part of creating interfaces, I'll say that whatever what is a verb? Johnny, what is a verb? A verb, English grammar. Verb in an English grammar. Can you hear me? Used to describe a state. Well, verb, yeah, actually, yes. I can say that uh, it describes the action of a noun, right? This is what my verbs do. So now, this helps me in selecting. How do I create selecting interfaces? So what do I create an interface as? For example, a jumping man, right? What is the verb here? Jump. Running, rabbit. Excuse me. Right? So in this case, I just don't have one action with respect to a man. So similarly, I can have multiple actions or multiple actions which can be described with respect to a particular noun. Now, how do I bring in all these different actions within a man? Using my abstract classes, it was not possible because it's again a class and I can extend only one class, right? But interfaces give me that freedom of having multiple different actions into a particular noun. For example, I'll create a class called human. Okay, so in case of my human, what all actions I can have? Like for example, I'll create an action. So I can create an interface in my IDE with a different option like this. Interface, I'll say jumpable. Okay. Similarly, I have different other actions of my human, like for example, eatable, right? I'll say walkable. So I have different actions with respect to human. Now, how do I have all these actions coming into my human? Like for example, I'll say public void perform jump. Okay, I can just define it here. Public void perform eat. Okay, so I'll just say public void walk. Okay, so this is with respect to my interfaces where I'm just defining or setting a prerogative. Now, when it comes to human has to have all these actions, right? So how do I do this in case of my programming? I'll say implements. Implements is the keyword which I use. Implements, jumpable, comma, walkable, comma, eatable. So I can have any different number of actions coming in within my human class. Fine. So this is showing me an alert. I'll just add unimplemented methods. Can you see this? So in this case also it is the same rule where I have to implement all the methods which I am actually inheriting, inheriting or implementing. Okay. So this satisfies my urge for having multiple inheritance, right? So now you may ask why multiple inheritance is possible in this case. As you saw, I was telling you this verb. Okay, so each and every action of mine is clearly different from another. So that is why there definitely is not a case where two actions or two methods within my different actions can overlap. Okay, even if it is overlapped, I don't have the implementation within my interfaces itself. I just have to bring into my base class. I mean to say, I just have to implement it in my another class and then I have to define it. Okay, so that is why multiple inheritance is actually allowed through my interfaces. Okay. So when I'm saying interfaces, all methods should be declared, not defined. Okay, they just have to be declared there. Means that a jumpable can have this action, an eatable can have this action, and a walkable can have this action. But the definition of which can be provided at a later stage. Okay, whenever they are implemented into some class. Okay, so in this case, if I'm creating a variable, they're all final by default. Okay, I can have only final variables within my interfaces. Okay, so this is in case of my interfaces. Any doubts with this? Johnny, any doubts? No. Okay, so we have we had these topics. Well, going further, we have only 2 sessions left. We'll reconvene tomorrow by 8:30. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Pawan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think it was muted from that side.
You can unmute it from your end.
Yeah. So okay, I
Okay.
thought. Okay.
Yeah, not a problem. If you have any doubts, you can let me know. Otherwise, we'll conclude this session. We'll have exception handling tomorrow. Okay,
Okay.
by
Fine.
8:30 we'll reconvene and we'll have exception handling.